We are three friends exploring connection from the coffee shop to the podcast studio. I'm Amy.
I'm Anna.
I'm Erin. What's the first topic here?
The first topic is connection to others, friendship. So do we want to talk about who we are, why we want to do this?
And what are we doing here? Let's start there.
What are we doing here?
It's a good question.
That's a super good question.
Who wants to start it?
Amy.
Okay. So just a little background on the three of us. We started a little book club a while back, and the only time that worked in our schedules was 6 a.m. on Wednesday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just made it work. 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. That started
2 years ago?
3 years, right?
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our book club turned to just talking about our weekly goings on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? And it was just a dependable time where we knew that we had to be there. So no matter what, we make that happen. We're all pretty committed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that no matter what's happening, so even if a husband is traveling or whatnot, we'll find if the coffee shop doesn't work and we have to go to someone's house, we do that. But no matter what, 6 a.m., we do that. And so we were thinking, this is a really cool way that we get to connect with each other, and we appreciate the commitment that each of us has to it. And we thought, well, maybe we should turn it into a podcast.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of that too is that every single time, like, I just noticed I would tell different people in my life, like, oh yeah, I get together with friends on Wednesdays at 6 a.m. We do it every week. And like the first reaction was like, oh my gosh, that's so early. But then, wow, that's really cool. And I just was thinking, like, we started talking and we were just like, oh my gosh, like, wouldn't it be cool if we could give this experience to other people, you know? Because like, we just have these, like, what makes it, when we have the coffees, what makes it feel like good
I get
coffee?
real fired up after.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were talking about this and it was just like, man, like,
we feel
Wouldn't it-
empowered by each
Yeah,
other.
and
We
it's
feel
fun.
grounded.
and we laugh and we like just have a ton of ideas and we're just, man, this is great. And then it's like, we want to keep that a safe space, but it's like so much of the other stuff that we talk about, relationships and like business stuff, like we can talk about that on the podcast and, you know, help other people feel less alone like we've been able to feel. Getting all sappy here. Erin, what do you got?
I don't know, Anna. Go to the next question. You gotta go
The
to
next question?
Yeah.
Why is...
I can't do on the spot.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make space for you to
Yeah.
share. That's all.
All right.
So about connection, like why in the world is it important? And like, why is it important at all? Why do we need each other?
Yeah, and Erin, with your line of work, there was
Yeah.
you said some really interesting stuff about
Good.
how see.
Erin always
What?
does super interesting stuff.
Because we're neurobiologically wired for
Yes.
connection.
Yes.
And we need it. And in our world today, I'm not so sure. I know that there's not enough places because a lot of people do not go to church anymore. And so we need places where we can organically connect, but we're missing those. And so about our coffee in the morning, I feel really lucky and really blessed that we have that because it's a consistent thing that we know is going to be there
Yeah.
every week and it's at the same place generally. And I think to have those built-in community gathering spots is super, super important. And so this is why
Mm-hmm.
connection is important.
And we found just even that community spot to be as simple as a coffee shop,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I think the consistency of it, like just knowing we can count on it, like it takes out a lot of the difficulty of just logistically planning it. It's like, okay, we're just going to make time for this. We're going to commit to it. We're going to make it a priority.
And it's the same time every week.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes it so easy rather than like, oh, can you do Tuesday at 7 this week or whatever? It just like makes
Generally
it
sit in the
so-
same spots
We
until
always
someone
sit in
gets there.
Yes.
same spot.
We've had a couple times where
We get a
people
little
have,
bit pissy when someone's in the spot. That's right.
So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about connection on this podcast.
We're not sure where it's going to go.
No.
Right.
And maybe we'll get some guests at some point.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But for
Yeah.
now, we seem to have a lot of ideas of conversation topics.
Yeah, connections like friendships, connections to your home, kids, partner, to yourself, to work, a greater purpose in your life, and a connection to like a higher power. So there's a lot of things we can talk about, a lot of things we can explore. Looking forward to this.
And in general, we'll have this open-ended question that starts us off, right? We'll talk about it, wrap it up at the end, and have kind of a to-do for the week. Not a to-do.
You're all scratched
No one wants it to do except for Amy.
You like to do, even I don't.
That was like an instant regret. You're like, actually, no, let's not do that.
Please, no.
No more to-do.
No more to do.
Just something we
Challenge? No, just kidding.
are going to work
I
on.
think it's something that you have to practice, right? So connecting with other people. And so the thing that we're going to practice, because we all want to create that. And so to offer that to anyone that is listening.
Yeah, totally.
So that could be a to-do, but really it's like we need to expand our bubble.
Yeah. Just to focus on for the week. Something I feel like whenever I pay more attention to, like when I set an intention almost for the week, it's like, okay, you know, I've been working on trying to use my phone way less, like screen time, just to have that connection. And like with my husband or my son or wherever I am, just to be more present. And so that's been just like okay, let's bring some awareness to this so that maybe I can stop doing it as much. So
and when you can have those challenges for connection, then we can realize, because the world is so split and divided. And so if we can have those different things that we can strive for or to intentionally do to show up in the world, then we realize that we're much more similar than we are different. I think.
For sure. Looking for the similarities rather than the differences.
Okay. Absolutely.
You're all lame. Hashtag lame.
No, Anna.
So then, we have, I have on my notes, babies dying in orphanages. So did we talk about this?
God,
I know, that's terrible. That is terrible.
Where did that come from?
That's why connection is important, because that's what we were talking about Romanian orphanages, and that when babies are not held and touched, then there is failure to thrive. And so just in connecting in those ways,
you mean like what?
You take good notes. Like, what the hell does that have to do with connection?
That took a turn for the words
because we need it as babies in order. If we don't thrive, you know.
Oh my word. That was horrible. I never do that.
Except for when a big giant microphone's right in front of your face.
My word.
Okay, so failure to thrive. Yeah. So that's like the physiology.
So you need that.
The proof that
we all need
that is
that connection.
Do you know anything else about that?
Not enough to sound educated.
Well, it's a good tidbit.
It's a good tidbit.
Be a little bit more clear on your notes, Anna.
All right, I'll mark that one off. All right.
Check. Moving on from orphanage.
So, like, I'm just curious, like, what's your history, each of you, of like making friends and like growing up? Like, we were talking about this last week as we were prepping for this episode, like, just kind of growing up. What was it like having friends or not having friends, and like, what was that like? I don't have to keep going on and on. You're picking up what I'm putting down here.
I think I gotcha. Yeah. Friends were a huge part of my family. We had these family friends that were really important. We had, and really, like, I grew up with the same people that I'm, still somewhat in touch with now. We kind of live all over the place, but yeah, just really important part of my family growing up. In my own family now, it's completely different than how it was for my growing up. Yeah. We tend to stick pretty close. So it's just interesting how, like, I grew up in one way, in one certain way. Friends were super important, always around. Almost like that was part of your value as a human, like how many friends you had. And right now with my husband and my kids, it's totally opposite.
Well, I just think there's less time as an adult.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So different.
Yeah. So I asked on my Facebook profile, I asked a question like, how do you feel about friends and
Yeah.
connection and stuff? Like, what's that all about? Try to keep it kind of open.
Yeah.
And that was the number one thing people said is like, oh, busyness and like, just too busy.
Well, and how you value your time. Because
Yeah.
time is there's just not a lot of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really do like hanging out with my family.
Mhm.
But I do have to say, too, as an adult, I feel like as a kid, it was like the more, the merrier.
Mhm.
And as an adult, it's just like the fewer, but the deeper,
Mhm.
the better.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So, you had just said something that made me think about something I was going
Busyness?
to say. Oh, busyness. Oh, and we had talked about this at one of our coffees was what it looks like the expectation of what
Oh, yeah.
what it means to hang out with your friends. Does it
Mhm.
have to be on the weekend? Does it have to be in the evening? And I think that's one of the cool things about our coffee shop
Mhm.
meeting
Yeah.
is that it didn't fit into any kind of box like that.
Mhm.
It was 6 a.m. on Wednesday morning.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Kind of random.
Mhm.
Kind of random.
It's
Right.
like, okay, we like coffee.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morning
and it
people.
works.
Yeah.
It works.
Mhm.
What about you, Erin, growing up? What was your friendship stuff like?
Do you feel like you're being interviewed right now by Anna?
That's great. That's great. She's doing a great job. I'm happy she took the lead. Great, Anna.
I have the list
Pass
in
the
front of me.
buck. That's right.
I have the list
That's
in front
good.
of me.
Right.
I don't know.
Keep going.
Yeah. We found your role. That's right.
All right.
Aaron and I'll just show up.
That's right.
All right, that works.
Oh, Anna, you took notes? Thanks. It's great.
I went through all of our past notes,
Right.
categorized them,
Right.
did subcategories.
Oh, that is good stuff.
Experience growing up is I was the youngest of, I am the youngest of 5, and my oldest sister is 6 years.
And I think for context,
Yeah.
it's all sisters.
All sisters, yes.
I think that's
so there's
good to
5
know.
girls. Yeah,
Yeah.
5 girls, and my closest sister in age to me is 6 years older than me. And so when I was little, there was no playmates around. And so when, I don't know, maybe I was 3, and my first friend was Nooper, my imaginary friend.
Oh,
And Nooper came everywhere. That was awesome. Yeah, Nooper was my imaginary
So
friend.
cute.
How old?
Flew in on jets. I think I was probably 3.
Oh, Nooper.
Yeah.
That
What?
is so cute.
You had a thought?
Yeah, I was gonna. Was Nooper a girl or a boy or?
Nooper is a badass. That's all. We had set a place at dinner for Nooper all the time. That was great. And then they're like,
so
oh yeah,
cute.
Nooper left on his jet, on his helicopter. Yeah, Nooper was
so
with me all the
cute.
time. And then my first real friend, we had a preschool, and then I went to the school down the street, and Matt was my buddy. And I think I was in 1st grade, and he was in kindergarten. And we were walking home from school, which wouldn't happen now because it was like several blocks away
Yeah.
from our houses. And so we're walking home, and he's like, hey, hi. I'm like, hi. He's like, you should come and see my turtle. And so I came over to come see his turtle. And now his mother, speaking of connection, his mother sends me every Christmas, sends me like some sort of turtle something.
Aw.
And so
Oh
I
my
think those
gosh.
things, because I also think that the people that know you when you're really little, regardless if you're still in touch with them, there is something special about
Yeah,
that because
sure.
they know all like what you were like when you were little
Yes.
and like what you're like now, and
Yeah.
like then how to watch how you've grown up
Yes.
and how they've grown up, and it's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
a different kind
Well,
of
it's like you have a witness to your life.
yeah. There you go, Anna. That's
Good
good.
one, Anna.
That's right. That's why you're the host.
No.
That's right. Oldest child. Well done.
Ah, got my notes here.
That's right. What is your experience?
Oh, thanks.
That's right.
Thanks for asking.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. So I grew up super, super shy.
Mhm.
Like I would literally not talk to a single soul outside of my family for 3 days.
Do you think that had anything to do with
For 3
twinning?
days?
Yeah. Like, like what, 3 days?
What 3 days?
Why 3 days? Yeah. I mean, I just remember thinking like, gosh, it's been 3 days. I haven't
Oh,
talked.
that you haven't talked
Yeah.
about.
That I haven't talked to,
I got it.
that I haven't talked to someone outside my family.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, what were you going to say? Do I think it's what?
No, I
Oh,
said, do you think?
sorry.
That's okay. Do you think it has anything to do with being a twin?
I don't know.
Was your
Yeah. So
twin- Was she more outgoing?
not at all.
Oh,
Yeah, no, we were all like really shy, and I remember thinking that was such a horrible thing.
Oh.
Like, Amy,
Right.
I know, it's so
Like,
sad.
oh, I'm so sorry, Anna.
No, things are good now.
Right.
Things have
Oh,
evolved.
you.
Things have evolved. But like looking back, I'm like,
Yeah.
holy cow, that was anxiety.
Right.
Like, just like the paralyzation, like before like speaking and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
I had that as a kid, but I had we did not have the internet. It was. We could
Right.
not look
Right,
things
that's right.
up
Yeah.
like we can now. And it's like, holy cow, I did not talk like to people, and like I just remember thinking like, oh man, extroverts have it made. Like they have all the friends, and like here I have no friends, and like I mean it lasted a really long time, and I mean I had switched high schools my junior year, but like before that I ate lunch by myself in the bathroom. Oh my gosh, we're getting personal. Yeah, totally by myself.
Anna just
by
dropped
myself.
in. Right.
But then
That makes my heart so sad.
Right.
no, but then I went. This is a cool
Did someone find you?
transferization. No one found me except for the janitor was on to me one
Where
time.
was your
Yeah.
twin?
Oh, we weren't really like. Then I went to a different high school and was able to totally reinvent myself, and like was able to like find something to do with my anxiety, and it was photography. So I like
Cool.
was a yearbook photographer, so it gave me like an in with meeting people,
Mhm.
and then I ended up like
Homecoming queen.
total
That's what you
transfer-
ended up.
total
Yeah.
transformation. Like, so talk about like being able to, you know, the power of the mind and
Mhm.
changing. But yeah, so I wasn't supposed to get so sad.
Yeah, that's what this is about, right?
Good.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that was my
Yeah.
experience. It was like,
Right.
holy cow, I like
Yeah.
idolized extroverts.
But I
That's
think
what
the
it was
world is
all
set
about.
up for extroverts. That's
Yeah, that's what I think too.
and I
for
think
sure.
that you have to adapt to that, or it's really difficult,
Yeah,
especially growing up.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember finding.
I think though it was
Oh.
more so. I think it's changing.
It is
I
changing,
think
but
there's
when
a
we were
lot
kids,
of change happening. But yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, I just think like with technology, that's a beauty of technology is that it's given a lot of people who are stereotypically like introverted a real format
Oh, yeah.
to like succeed.
Yeah, I really like social media because it allows me to like take a break and step back, and then I can like figure out what I want to say, and it's not like so on the spot of like, okay, you know, have to know exactly what witty thing to say right now,
Yeah.
you know.
you
Yeah.
got a lot of witty things in there, Anna. Don't sell yourself short, boss.
It's true.
But yeah, so I remember also like, did you guys ever read Ann Landers or Dear Abby?
I mean, not like religion, but yeah, I mean, I'm familiar.
Yeah, so I feel like she taught me how to like be social in a lot
Really?
of ways.
Oh,
Isn't that,
interesting.
like,
Just by reading, like, this is how you do this.
yeah. And then like I found a pamphlet that I could like, this is gonna make me sound so incredibly old, but this was before the internet. Like
yeah.
you could like write a letter in and just be
Yeah.
like, okay, I want this pamphlet. Like she had how to do all these different things, and one of them was how to be popular. And I was like, this is gonna be it.
Wait, and did you write in and ask for one?
Yeah.
And you
Dude, it
got
worked, homecoming queen. It worked.
That
It totally
is
worked. I paid like, I got like
amazing.
$2, sent it in, got this pamphlet, read it every single day.
That is
Mhm.
amazing.
In the memoir.
And she
that
taught
goes
me.
in the memoir. Anna, the
Seriously.
secret life
Yeah.
of
Do you still
Anna.
have it? Do you still have that?
I've looked for it and I cannot find it.
Oh man,
But
I wonder if
it's
it's on
like-
the internet now.
I know, right? I should try to find it.
The
But it was
World
like,
Wide Web.
seriously, Dear Abby like taught me all the things.
Really?
And she was like, oh my gosh, this is how I'm going to make friends. This is how to connect with people. Like, you know, as a shy person with anxiety, it was
Wow.
like, this is what I need. I need a key. Just tell me how to do it.
Did you know you had anxiety as a kid?
No,
No.
I know now as an adult,
Right.
but it was like, oh, that like freezing fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious how it shaped your friendships, both of your stories of
Yeah.
kids, your adult friendships.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm medicated now, and that helps a ton. It really does.
Hey man.
Social anxiety is like,
Right.
yeah, last week I was like, I think I should just taper down off of that. And then I'm like, last night I was like, got mad at my husband for something. And I'm like, oh dear God, I better get back on that full dosage. I was like, why am I so mad at him about the spoon situation? This is not, okay, medicine, reactivate.
Those spoon situations will get you.
Oh,
that is funny.
yeah, he wants to put the spoons in the dishwasher like they're spooning.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm like, they can't get clean that way.
oh, in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Touching or space?
Like they're literally spooning.
Huh.
Oh.
That'd be hard to get the crud out.
And then you
from
can't,
between
yeah,
them.
they spoon, but he's like, it makes it so much easier. Anyway, yeah. So,
We almost went down that rabbit hole. That's good.
Yeah.
Bring it back. Here
Yeah,
we go.
Yeah. So what were you wanted to ask Amy about the,
Yeah. How did your experience as a kid shape what your adult friendships are now? Since you said they were totally different.
Oh boy. Well, I think just like getting to know myself more, being open and accepting of myself, looking to others, like looking less to others for approval, believe it or not, you know, like all that stuff. It's like, I have my preferences and I'm okay with that. I think much more than I ever was. And also like, I really value time by myself, which is completely, that did not exist. You know, I'm the middle of 5 kids growing up. And so with all my siblings around.
5 and 5.
How many you have?
4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chaotic families growing up. This is why we're doing a podcast connection.
Yeah. Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah. And we moved a lot as a kid. And so I think it was just, in some ways, it's like I was always hustling hustling for friends in a way, or like, you know, just hustle. And it was good. Like I had a lot of I had a lot of good friends. My big thing, so I had this phone list. So of course, like pre-cell phone,
we're close to 40.
And
I was just giving context. We're all close to 40.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Over it.
Right. Under.
Under.
August.
Barely.
I'm hanging on to it as long as I can.
That's right.
Yeah.
Under.
It's great.
Yeah. I've actually been really happy with getting older.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But so this
The
phone
chart.
list.
The chart.
So
phone
I
list.
literally,
Okay.
we had one of those, I don't know if you remember the old, like original Apples that were like those little tiny computer screens. Anybody
No.
remember those?
The big bubbles?
No, before that, way before that. So it was just like this
Green?
like, no, gray. It's like this high and that wide. And it had this little thing and then you plug the keyboard in. Anyway,
no.
that, and it had this like crazy typeset, like a bubbly kind of letters.
It sounds
I don't know why I'm
fun.
giving so much detail.
That's
about
good.
this,
You're good with
but-
the detail.
Oh my goodness.
Paint the picture, Amy.
Let me just tell you that I created my phone list.
I'm sure you
it
did.
was like, I don't know. I think I got up to like 8 pages. Like
Wow.
2 sides, not all typed, because then I started handwriting it in because I didn't want to keep printing it and reprinting it. So like typed handwritten names and numbers.
Bobby, Jane.
And that was
Betty.
like a real piece of like value.
What about you, Erin?
I think I had to figure out how to, because I was so young, I just had to figure out how to get people to like me. And so I think it's shaped like in being selective, but I've kept, because that was so important, I've kept like friends from every section of life.
That's
So like,
cool.
I don't talk to Matt very often, but like when I went back to Pennsylvania in May, I saw them. And then like couple friends from high school, couple friends from college, like as the time goes on, and I keep them around.
And what about Huber or Boop? What was your imaginary friend?
Nooper.
Hoover.
Nooper is always around, Amy.
I can't believe we haven't heard of Nooper.
Oh yeah.
know.
When I was
love
doing online
that.
dating, they had said like one interesting fact. I was like, okay, Cupid, like one interesting fact about you, and I was like, oh yeah, I had an imaginary friend. And people were like, you're really gonna keep that on there? Like,
Yes,
yeah,
that's
it's
so-
hilarious. Come on.
And it has a
that's
great
right.
name.
That's like that.
Nooper.
That like
Yes.
repel or attract.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if a guy
Do you
doesn't
think I'm
like
weird?
that,
Yeah.
then bye-bye.
Yeah.
If you like it, hello.
Where do you see the whole package?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, you think that's awesome.
That's
Just wait.
it's good. Nooper, right?
You know, one thing I do have to say, like my parents were so skilled in, and my mom to this day, like she can get in front of a crowd and just speak. Her like ability to public speak and for them to entertain and to have friends, it's really
Impressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you think you learned that by watching her?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I learned a lot in that regard from them. Yeah.
So
definitely.
one of the things that really stand out to me about you, Amy, is when I very first met you. And it was
Tell me, Anna.
Okay.
Amy just perked up in her seat. That's good.
you're all, tell me
Oh,
more.
this should be interesting.
I know.
But I think you're
My palms are also sweating.
super great at first impressions.
Absolutely. I
yeah.
agree with that.
So, like, one of the things that, and maybe you had this same experience, Erin, was Amy asked me so many questions about myself when we first met, and it was like the best. I was like, she really likes me. This is And she's
I do really like it.
Oh, thanks. But it got me thinking as we were talking about this podcast and like, friendship and how that all works. It's like people that like them. And it's like, I don't know if it's like a survival thing or like I'm going to reject them before they reject me. But I notice when I don't think someone likes me, I'm like, I didn't like them that much anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Protect yourself.
Mm-hmm. Heck yeah, right? Yeah. But it's like, so Amy, I feel like you're super good at like first impressions. And it's so interesting because I thought so highly of you by you asking questions about me. So like, it's just something that I've really learned like, I got to ask. Yeah. It's like kind of this little social skill of like, Amy's so good at this. And
But it is interesting to be around people. I just had like these girls' weekends, and it's amazing to be able, when someone asks you a question about your life, like how simple that sounds, but really like how much that means to building connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because if someone kind of just goes along and doesn't really ask much about, you or you're like, how do you form connections?
Well, because being present is a superpower.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And people asking.
But I feel like sometimes like people talk about being present and it's not as explicit as like, just ask someone what's their day look like.
Well, and give a shit about it. Care about it. Not you're just not asking like, oh, how are you?
Right.
Yeah. And if you like stop and wait, they're like,
that's such a cliche thing to ask. Like, how are you? It's like everyone just says fine. It's like you almost have to ask something else.
Yeah.
Like,
well, or
just
like
to like kind of get him off guard or something. Not
my grandpa. He lived till 103. And my grandpa, totally. And he,
some good genes.
I was just gonna say that
he's the only one.
Right.
Right. Oh shoot. And so he would always say that anytime we go in a public place, he would always say, the waiter would be like, "Oh, hi, sir. How are you?" And he would be like, "I'm terrible." And the guy would be like, "Oh, okay." And then he's like, "Well, that's the only way you'd listen."
Yeah.
It's all the time. Grandpa Joe.
I think the other thing is like, how many people actually ask a second question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like you ask someone, how are you? And then it's like, no matter what their reaction, okay, you move on. But like when you're really engaged with someone or present or whatever you want to say, to ask like that second follow up, like, oh, what do you do for work? Well, I'm an author. Oh, well, tell me about your book. Like how many people just like, oh, you're an author. Okay. They like make up their mind about what that means and don't ask a second follow up question.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're thinking about the response to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that makes me crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's just impossible to have any kind of connection. And then you feel like you wasted your time. Or at least I do. Because
Amy is very, very time efficient. What's the phrase that you said the other day?
Who knows?
Fool's kind. Yeah.
God.
Oh, this is great. This will let you know what Amy's like here in this little evaluation.
Yeah. So I had a letter of recommendation to my undergraduate college, and one of my favorite teachers in high school, he wrote a letter of recommendation for me, and in it he wrote, "Amy is not one who gathers fools kindly."
Yeah, it's true. She is not.
And I thought, oh man, but then I was like, yeah, that's
right.
Well, actually, that's fine.
I don't know what to do with that.
Right. Well,
but there it is.
Yeah,
you're doing it. It's very true.
Take it, accept it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Find people who will accept me.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So why we're doing this podcast?
Well, who do we want to reach out to? Like, what is our hope for that? I think we should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
Take it away, Erin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, so I mentioned this to one of my friends, and she works full time. She has 2 small kids. Mm-hmm. And I was telling her what we were planning on doing, and she was like, "Oh, I need that."
Oh, that's
because
so cool.
She doesn't have a lot of time in her life to hang out with people, but she also wants to feel really connected.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to talk on the phone like several times a week, and then she had kids, and then that stopped. And so I think that's who we're hoping to, not necessarily to have kids or not, but people that are busy and in transit and maybe are needing that in their life.
Yeah. Anyone who's ever felt alone ever.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world.
Yeah. So if you're a person who's ever felt alone ever, you can. This is for you.
Email at Amy. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay. So one other thing that we totally forgot to talk about is the workshop Amy did for us about Dandapani and how we all had connection show up as one of our top 3 values.
Yeah. Amy?
This is a shout out to Bar 3 and Sadie Lincoln because I went to this workshop. I was a member at our local Bar 3 studio. They held a workshop in Oregon, not our particular studio, but Bar 3 as a whole. And Sadie Lincoln, who founded Bar 3, was there, and she had invited Dandapani.
Who is Dandapani?
Dandapani is a Hindu priest, and he goes around the world speaking to basically like achievers, I would say. I mean, he works a lot with, business executives, C-suite people. Just kidding. Inside joke. But anyway, so he does a lot with them. And so there was a lot of education around the mind. And
so he's all about like mindfulness and technology. Is that right?
Not technology.
Awareness.
The mind and awareness.
Okay.
And then, really like living a life with intention.
Mm-hmm.
And I highly recommend if you ever have an opportunity. He's awesome. And anyway, so then, and Sadie had a core values lesson she ran a workshop alongside. It was kind of like a session, I would say, on core values. And so we did this exercise where we had probably, how many words do you think we?
A ton. Amy gave us our own
50?
packets and laminated all
Yes.
of them.
Yeah.
She was very appreciative of.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So after Amy ended up doing the same workshop for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were like
I just
50
did
words.
Yep. But basically, there were 50 words. They were all different values. And all those words could mean different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly enough, like after you go through this whole exercise, you end up with your 5, you limit to 5 top core values.
Mm-hmm.
And all 3 of us.
Well, with the goal, if you don't mind me saying,
go ahead.
with the goal of once you have these core values, then you can structure your life based around those.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then we all said our core values out loud.
Yeah. So we shared those, which is an empowering. I don't know. I think we did it. Our groups were a little bit bigger in the session than what the 3 of us did.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we all said them out loud and we all had connection.
Mm-hmm.
I think connection was my
that's the
second.
top one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, we thought, oh my goodness, it's important.
Well, I think we realized that after. I think we realized it was connection after we realized we wanted to do this podcast. Like we were talking about like this podcast idea, and then it was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. We all had connection as like a core value. This is crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think the way it happened, it was like you had been talking to someone, or I don't know, somehow our 6 a.m. coffees came up and you kept hearing like, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I had that.
Yeah.
And then we were talking like, oh, how could we like, I don't know,
because all of us listen to a lot of podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
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 Wait, you were going to say something.
I have no idea what I was
I was hanging on my seat. That's why Amy started laughing, and I was waiting for this big drop.
Facial expression.
And then nothing.
Yeah, it's like...
Anyway.
Yeah, so just like talking to people about like the morning coffee and stuff, and then like they were just like, oh my gosh, I wish I could be there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that's like, an interesting tidbit that I definitely like got us going in the direction of podcasts around connection. Thanks
but
to
you were
Dandapani.
talking about in terms
values.
the people that are coming, like when we were talking about coffee, and that you can want to hang out with these people and not want to hang out with these people. So what were you saying about that we talked about last Monday?
Oh, I think like one thing, I think I mentioned this briefly about like having a really wide net and having just like as many friends and hanging out all the time and all this stuff as a kid. And then as I've gotten older, it's like my net is very narrow and deep. And I think that for me, connection, I am picky. Like I'm a picky person and definitely a little guarded at times. And so I think this is what you're talking about, but maybe not. But so there's a lot of people who I really like in this world and they're great, but I don't necessarily want to have 6 a.m. coffee with them. And I think that's okay. And I think that, or at least okay or not, that's how I am. So
I think it is okay. I'm curious about about what you, because I think societally there's like, this is how it should be so much of the time. And so I wonder, and even now I'm happy with like that I have people, how I'm doing friends.
Yeah.
But there's not, But then I should, like when you were talking about those people that have like, they have the same 20 people that they hang out with, and then they have kids, and then they hang out, and then this is like their crew. Yeah. And I don't have that, and I don't know that I've ever had that. I've always had like 1 or 2 people that are my people. Yeah. And then we go do other things. Yeah. And so my net was wide, but not with like very close people. And so I wonder societally what are those? Because I still feel like I'm doing that wrong, but but inside I feel good, right? But I still feel like
society.
So what are the things that you all see at that how it's supposed to be? Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but I'm curious about your thoughts about that.
I mean, that makes me think of like the different like levels of friendship, and like just a couple weeks ago we got together for Amy's birthday party, and it was like, oh gosh, we never really see each other outside of coffee. And it was like, this is really interesting.
But we're friends in real life.
Yeah. So it's
this is real, people.
And it really is like, I guess I have definitely had that unspoken expectation of like friendships mean you hang out a lot and like you call each other and you know, text, and you
only text Anna. That's what you do.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yes, please. My voicemail says, please text me. But yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, like we have to be hanging out. We have to be doing all these things. We have to have inside jokes. We have like all these different levels of like hanging outness.
Like and friendship means this thing.
Yeah. It's like, oh, we have to get together and watch a movie together. We have to talk about this. We have to do this and
we
this.
have all these pictures together.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, I think what we found from, at least what I found from our coffee meeting friendship, is that like it can look totally different, and like it can work on so many different levels of like, this is what I have time for, this is what I want, this is what's serving me, this is reciprocal and like rewarding, and let's leave it at that. Like we don't have to, of course I would love to hang out with you more, but we don't have to for it to like make our friendship
to be my
better.
friend. Yeah.
And it's like, so changing that definition that we have of like the shoulds, like within our own heads.
There's so
like,
many of them.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't even realize there were so many things, like expectations that like I had about around friendship until we started talking about all this.
I think another thing that is super interesting today with social media and technology and whatever, like the phone used to be, I mean, that was a huge part. I like growing up, I would talk on the phone all the time.
Hide it from your siblings?
Yes, hours.
That's right.
Totally.
Take the cord out of the wall that my sisters used to do to each other. You can't use it.
And then I remember when we got a second line, that was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, call waiting.
There was one phone in my house that we had upstairs, and you could hear the whole conversation. So I would never, because you know I was a little sister. I don't even think I've ever told them this. And I would just put my ear to the phone, so I would listen to all of their things. Nooper and I used to do that, right?
It was all Nooper.
Nooper's idea, leading me astray. That's right.
But I do think like today it's like, you know, there's no phone, you know, you don't have that same phone culture right now. It's like text, and then there's this whole thing of like thinking, I guess like this is my bias against social media, but you know, like social media is supposed to take this place of that type of connection, but it doesn't. You know, there's definitely like a lack of connection if that's the only thing you're relying on to connect you to people in the world. And I think that Anna's pulling out a piece of paper, an article here, all highlighted.
Like a ninja.
Slightly distracting what's about to happen.
So can I tell you something that I found online about connection?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Online. So this is an article by Brianna Weist. I'm totally W-I-E-S-T from the Medium. Connection is a core human need, but we're terrible at it. That's the title of the article. And it says there's a point to this. But she says authenticity is required for connection. The internet and social media do not disconnect us because we're glued to our phones at the dinner table, but because they increase our ability to be inauthentic.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
say that again.
Okay. Authenticity is required for connection. The internet and social media do not disconnect us because we're glued to our phones at the dinner table, but because they increase our ability to be inauthentic. So they allow us to
be whoever you want.
Yeah, they allow us to glow, edit, and filter and post a highlight reel. We can construct a facade of our lives that may or may not be an honest reflection of reality. In this, we breach connection. So people who have people who have authentic connections over social media report having a largely positive view and experience of it. So people who use
so interesting.
Yeah, people who use it as a genuine way to stay in touch with others don't report the same levels of anxiety and depression associated with its use. And the reason people try to fake their way into being liked is that they confuse attention for connection, and they are not the same thing.
I totally agree.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So you have to have you've got to watch your motivation.
Yeah, so you have to show up
social media
as like your true authentic self.
Mhm.
And like I've totally found this to be my experience with social media and partly why I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
But yeah, so I just had to bring that up as far as like the social media topic and why we feel disconnected and stuff
Yes.
on there.
Well, I think I might be using it in the wrong way then.
But it's
Searching for the likes, Amy.
Well, it is really interesting. So whenever I
Or
ask
just
questions,
don't use it.
like, so I did ask that question on my Facebook profile about like friendship and things like that. And when you ask people that like questions and actually want to know the answer, it makes it so much more fun. And then they're like,
yeah, totally.
it's like,
Hear what people have to say about that.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, let me ask this follow-up question. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and so it just makes it like feel more true. And like, I feel like I wouldn't be able to be authentic on social media if I wasn't as in tune with who I am personally.
Yeah.
And that's just the result of like working on myself. And you both have done a ton of work on yourselves personally as well. And so like, I think there's just a lot of power in knowing who you are and then going into relationships and connecting with people
And being
as your
real
true self
on social media.
Yeah.
I don't
really-
post on there very much, but that when I was taking that marketing class and I had to post that why video, which was super vulnerable, and I had to sum up why I'm a therapist, and so why I'm doing the work and the people that I work with. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to post this because it is generally who I am on the site. And I got so much feedback, and I wasn't scared to do it. And I was like, well, if someone doesn't like it, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because like normally like lots of people viewed that, and it was like, it just was, but I didn't care either or because I was just doing it because that's who I am. And I think it's like when you can come from that grounded place and that you just put things out there because it feels good to you. Like I think it's very different than if you're like, I need someone, I'm going to wear this, I'm going to like push my hair aside and then I'm going to wear this new whatever and have people want to like me for that.
Yeah.
I think that's when it's damaging or hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, it's a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So let's see, do we want to go ahead with
Let's give you a to-do list here. Here's the point for the to-do.
I have thought of a couple takeaways that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, so
Yes.
what is your biggest takeaway from this, like what we've talked about with friends? And
Well, I would say, I mean,
like, do you have a tip as someone who is so good with first impressions, Amy?
geez. I honestly, the
You
questioning.
really are.
I mean, it really is like questioning, like authentic interest. Like, oh my gosh, another
like, be
human.
curious.
Where are you?
Yeah,
You know, like,
yes.
try not, like, what are you about? I mean, I find it so interesting how quick, and I'll speak for myself, but it's like how quick I am to like judge, right? And it's like come up with these ideas who I think people are. But then like you ask 3 questions and you're like, oh, you're way more interesting than I thought you might be.
Yes.
Or like, I mean, than my
Almost always.
idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so, so I was thinking like takeaways is just add a 3rd question,
That's
like
great,
just,
yeah.
I get in conversation with, ask at least 3 open-ended questions, like, tell me more about what you just told me. Tell me more, or whatever. So
That's
I think that's a challenge for the week.
That is so good. What about you, Erin? What's your takeaway? Or what's your big tip on like connection and friendship?
My big tip.
As a therapist.
As a therapist, I'm like, oh.
No
yes, we
pressure.
don't have to pay you for this. This is free.
This is totally free. You can Venmo me.
Let me think. The biggest tip on that.
She's on the spot, Anna. You might have to
Sorry.
go.
Yeah.
You want me to go?
We talked about this.
Sorry, Erin. Sorry. We'll work on this. Okay. So I think my biggest takeaway is eye contact and like trying to be present and like, okay, I guess I have a couple takeaways, but like the whole be curious thing, medicine for social anxiety. So laugh, what's up? Erin.
She's not getting paid for that.
No, but seriously, it has helped me a ton with that. Oh, and then making it easy for you to connect. So like I find myself at the coffee shop all the time. I work out of there, and it's like I have another friend, and she's going through a hard time, and it's like, hey, do you want to get coffee this week? Like I'm there. It makes it easy if you have like just like place to meet at. Like so just make it easy on yourself to like meet up with people and just like and I think being curious and just listening, and like I don't know, like the social anxiety thing, like it's so easy for me to get wrapped up in my own head and my own thoughts. So it's like if I make it about them and how I can like show up for them.
Exactly what I was just going to say.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like that makes it way easier.
That connection is not about you. The connection is about the thing between the two people.
Yeah, and it's like that thing, like why the photography worked for me in high school with connecting with people is because it gave me something to do outside of myself,
Like the dishes at family holidays.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Love those.
Yes, I'll do them. Oh, you're so helpful. I know. I just
Get
don't
me
want to
outta
talk to you. Right. I think for me is that there's no wrong way to do friendship. And if this thing is, if how you were doing friendship, then, and that's what works for you now, that don't make yourself wrong about it. Just own it completely. That's my takeaway.
That's really good. Okay. So
Good stuff.
Yep.
Do we have something we want to work on for this week?
I think that. Yeah. You.
Oh, you may, three questions.
Yeah.
3 open-ended questions.
And see how it
dare
goes.
you.
Okay.
I dare you.
Dare you.
It's not a to-do.
Mine is going to be continuing to keep my screen time down and to like put the phone away when I'm with other people
Mm-hmm.
and not Shazam in the middle of a conversation like I did with it.
It's good. It's great when you're at a coffee shop and you're talking about connection, and then a really good song comes on the radio, and your friend named Anna, Suzanne.
I'm like, sorry guys, sorry.
I need to look at this right
Erin,
now.
I promise I'm still listening. Keep talking.
Actually, you're not. But how's that song, Anna? Really great.
I felt like the biggest jerk after. I was like, that was so bad. That was so bad. And then the Shazam thing didn't even work. I was like, oh, karma.
Well, that's how it
So
goes.
lesson learned. I felt bad about that all week. I'm so
Good, because I
sorry.
was judging you. So just kidding. No, good. I think I'm going to do the questions.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us.
Hey, thank
Hey,
you.
the first one. Here
Let's
we are.
count more together.
I wish you could see that dance Amy just did. Someday.
No.
Yeah, someday.
All right. Well, thank you all
Good,
so
we'll
much.
wrap it up.
And we will talk with you next week.
Oh, and we might have an email.
Amy, no.
Yeah, maybe by then we'll have an email.
Yep,
Yeah.
we will. I'll do it. I'll task myself.
Oh,
Yeah, that's my
amazing.
challenge of the week.
I like it.
Email.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
All right.
Growing our connection.
Growing our connection.
All right.
Cool.
Bye.
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 Thanks for listening. You can find more about this episode and a way to connect to the community at lessalonepodcast.com. And if you like us, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave a review. It helps other people find us and could be just what they need.